Welcome back. So let's create two components. So first is the login component and second is the welcome component. So once the user is logged in, the user should navigate to the welcome component. So for that we'll need the routing, and the routing will be in between the two components. First the login, and if the login is successful it will route to the welcome component. So let's quickly create the two components first. So first one is the login component. Let me see where I am. Okay. The way I can create the component is by ng g is generate. I want to generate a component and the name of the component, so it's login, and it generated. Let's see. Yep. I'll just close this thing. I don't need specs.ts file. uh, Let me check. So inside app module.ts, the login component, it's there under the declaration. So this IDE does it automatically. So I have the login component, and I will again do a welcome component. I think it's not refreshed. Now it's here, the welcome component. Again, I don't need this file. Okay, let's create some text boxes for the login. So I'll just give an h2 tag and just login form. I'll use def and a label username, input type equal to text. uh, let's first create the form, then we'll add the ng model, and in the next div I'll have label as password, input type is equal to password, and another div I'll just have a button type is equal to button extra t and the value will be login. Let's see. So let's create a new file under app called app router.ts. So now basically our starting point should be the login form. To do that we need to add the routing. So ts is TypeScript file, and I'm okay. So let's create the routing, and the way we do that, I need to export const router routes, and it will be an array. Now I need to import this routes, and I imported it, and this will be an array, and we'll add arrays the paths later. And then I need to export const routes module with providers is equal to for route and the router. that's all we need to do for the routing, and I need to do an entry to the app module.ts, and I can just add the routes here. Yeah, and I added the routes from the app router from here, this routes. Okay, so it will be an object. So first thing we'll need the path. What will be the path? The path will be login, and what component to load when the path is login. The component will be the login component, and I forgot the comma. Okay, or I can give path if path is nothing and it's the exact, or I can say redirect to where I want to redirect to login, and the path match should be exact. Exact comma here. Let's see. Okay, now we added the routing, but this routing won't work for now. The reason being, remember we have this app component and the starting point is index.html. Under index.html we have something called app route, and this is the app component, it's getting loaded. So under app component.html we are having this one. So instead of using this markup, we need to define the routing here, and the way we do that is something called router outlet. So this router outlet will bind our app router, and this app router will see, okay, path matches nothing, so I want to redirect it to the login. It will come to the login, and the login component will get loaded. I need to start the server, ng server. Something is wrong. Invalid configuration of route path match can only be set to prefix or full. Okay, so I think it's not exact, it's full probably. Path match should be full. So here is our login form. Now let's make some hard-coded values. So under, I just close it. I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. I'll need it later, but login form. And so what do we need? We need username to bind, and we need password to bind. Now again, ng model banana in a box is equal to username, this, and ng model is equal to password, and I'm binding password here. Remember, the ng model requires the name attribute. I hope it should give the warning, but it didn't. But ng model uses a name attribute, but so let's just give it a name called username. uh, Name is equal to password. So we are binding this username to app component and this password to again to the login component here. Sorry, the login component, not the app component. Okay, and here on the button click, I can have the click event. This is like on click. And on click, I need to execute a function. To execute that function, I will create a new function called login clicked. So I created a new function here, and I want to bind on click event login click. And let's quickly do a console.log to see username plus sorry plus this dot password. And I must said and 1 2 3 4 login, and I am getting the values here. So I can let's do if this dot username equals to sid and this dot password equals to admin. I'll give you a quick comment. I need to redirect to welcome component, else remain on login component. All right, so now we are getting the values here. If the username is sid and the password is admin, I need to redirect it. So there is a concept called dependency injection. We need to inject the routes to this constructor. So if your background is Java, you might be familiar with the concept of dependency injection. So we need to inject the routes to the constructor. So if in future, in later videos, we'll create the services. So we need to inject the services to the constructor so that it can be used inside the component. So I will inject something called routes to router. I need to import the router and it's automatically get imported here. Now I can use this routes to navigate to the welcome component. So how can I do that? This dot routes dot navigate, and I need to navigate to the welcome page like this. It should be this way. And I can just delete the else part here. Let's see. Sid and admin. Let's log in. Wow, we got an error. Cannot match any routes to the URL segment welcome. The reason is we haven't made any entry to the app router. So I need to make path. Path should be welcome. And what component I need to use for welcome? Correct, it's welcome component. Now if I add it sid and the password is admin, and it redirected to the welcome component here, welcome box. So our routing is working fine. Sorry. So we were able to navigate from login component to the welcome component. So later we'll create different components, and the component we need to give the entry inside the routing, and this is how we can route from one component to the another component. So in the next video we'll create the welcome component. We'll style the welcome component, and we'll add the bootstrap framework for styling, and then we'll create the events component. uh, Thank you very much.